All right, it's the end of 2022. We've gone through the whole video card shortage. We've gone through a lot of shortage. We've gone through crazy pricing. We've gone through no availability. We've gone through parts that saw basic cards like GT 730s being sold for $100 or $150, 1030s and the such. I hope that you were not in a position where you had to do that or buy one of those. That it was just weird and crazy. But as things have calmed back down and gotten back to normal, I don't know if they're normal. There's a couple cards that are probably worth taking a look at that are really sort of in that budget range of 150 to 200. This might be one of them. GTX 1660 in 2022. The short answer is yes. Now the GTX 1660 came out around the same time as the 2060. It was supposed to be the step in between. It had something to do with the name of the die. However, NVIDIA decided to start naming stuff and skipping around and doing whatever. Who knows? Anyway, the 1650, 1660, then you have 1630 and all that stuff that ended up coming out. You had some Supers and TIs that came out. But fact of the matter is, the 1660 ended up being a fairly chunky card, but was a pretty good card when it came out. Now, not a lot as far as that is concerned has changed. It still is supported by NVIDIA with current drivers, and it still does do a pretty good job with titles that came out during that time. Now, titles like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Borderlands 3, and all that stuff that we normally test that came out or around shortly after that time frame or whatever, those we know are going to be solid. Those are going to be great, and we won't have any problem trying to get it, especially at 1080, which most people are going to play this at. In Borderlands 3, 1080 high gets you 62 frames per second. It does even better on stuff like Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Now, Far Cry 5 was one of those titles I have to go back and look at because it actually did worse this time than when I tested it against the 10105F and the 11400 and all that using the 1660 in it. It was about 20% lower, and I'm not sure what the deal is, so I'll go back and take a look. But for the most part, for everything else, it remained solid. And you might be wondering, okay, and we show a couple like slides, you know, showing some frames and all that stuff up here. But you might be wondering, okay, but there's other titles that have come out since then that are way more stressful. Some a little bit more CPU bound, some a little bit more GPU bound. And how do those fare? Well, you know, stuff like Forza Horizon 5, not a problem at all. We're going to get a solid 60 plus frames per second, 1080p. And you get close to pushing that if you lower your settings just a little bit in 1440. Not that everybody's going to be playing that. With a game like Far Cry 6, even 1440 at, say, medium settings is going to be very playable over 60 frames per second. And at 1080p is going to be fantastic. I didn't see any quality issues with either of these titles at all. And they ran really, really well. Now, when you go to something like Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, another newer, harder title to run that's pretty graphic intensive. A lot of the time, no matter what graphics card you got in it, the CPU is going to run about 40%, and graphics card is going to be maxed out playing this game. Looks beautiful. I have to admit that this game, even at 1440, the highest setting, ultra high, still put in about 45 frames per second, but looked beautiful, and it was very smooth. And that I had all settings turned off. I wasn't having any kind of variable rate or anything like that adjusted. I just ran with stock settings. But even with that, with Valhalla, this looked very, very good and very, very clean, and I was pretty impressed with it. And then you've got, of course, the ones that are always the troublemakers. Horizon Zero Dawn is a troublemaker. It's always pretty much the great equalizer. Not a problem with this card. This card really, really 1080p, great, over 60 frames per second without a problem at all. You don't have to make any adjustments as far as frame size or trying to add anything or subtract anything or do anything other than default settings. It did great. The one thing that some people are saying, this generation's crisis, is CyberPunk 2077, and you can run this at least last generation console standard of 30 plus frames per second at 1440. If you lower those settings a little bit, you can get closer to 60 frames per second. At 1080, This ran at 60 frames per second on medium or high without much of a problem at all. It ran really, really good, and it looked good. So I was pretty surprised there. Now, the one thing about CyberPunk 2077 is it does have its own FSR adjustment in there. Even on an NVIDIA card, it adjusts, FSR 2.1 has an auto setting or automatically switches to quality setting, so you get the benefit of that a little bit. So where this card might have actually had a problem generally trying to rasterize it, with FSR automatically turned on in the settings, it went very, very easily. And in fact, if you really felt conscious about it and you really were worried about it and you dropped your settings down to say 900p or 720p, we're talking closer to 90 frames or 100 frames per second. So it's very, very solid. It does very well, even in this time period where we're looking. It's on the average, I would say probably about 20% slower, 25% slower on some games than the RTX 2070. We all kind of know about where that falls. 2070 and the 3060 are pretty close to each other. And it's going to be somewhere right around, maybe fighting along with an RX 580 or so, 8 gig. This does have 6 gig of VRAM, which does help it in games like Far Cry 6 that eat up about 5 gig of video memory right off the bat. No matter what setting, I'm not going to say what setting. If you're running it on 1440 or 1080, a lot of times it tries to chew up at least 5 gig of VRAM, and with this having 6 on it, it's that sweet spot right in between 4 and 8. You've got some of those cards out there like the RX 480s and 580s that come in or 570s even, that come in a 4 gig model and an 8 gig model. Some games will play really well, some games play not quite as well, but this 1660 kind of hits a sweet spot. You probably find this cheaper on eBay or something like that used. I don't know. Yeah, you enter at your own risk. Used video cards, especially now where everybody's trying to get rid of mining cards. But this wouldn't have been that popular of a mining card in the first place. Stuff like the RX 5500 series, 5700s, and all that stuff were better. And even some of the RTX 30 series were much, much better at mining than this was. So you might be able to find a pretty good deal. Chances are, if you're trying to get one of these used, you're probably going to end up getting it from a gamer. Because that's kind of the target audience it was. It still, now in 2022, my answer is a firm yes. It's a great gaming card, especially paired like it was with this, with the Ryzen 5 3600X. I've got that in there because that's the one that I rebuilt with the all-in-one cooler, the NZXT all-in-one cooler that I completely redid and fixed. And I'm setting this up so it's probably eventually going to be my storage server for games. It might be for games, it might be for YouTube videos so I can archive those. I don't know what I'm going to do. I just know that right now I've got that set up as a general use computer, and I thought I would go ahead and test it out because, the RX 480 didn't work in there, which was strange in itself, and maybe we'll do a troubleshooting video on that. That RX 480 was actually in that system when I started the channel, and for some reason now it doesn't want to work in there. But this worked well, and gave me very, very good numbers, including some harder to run titles like Far Cry 6, Valhalla, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and of course Cyberpunk 2077. I'm going to learn how to talk one of these days. I'm going to have a lot of fun when I do that, and this channel will probably be pretty good when I figure it out too. I'm just saying. Anyway, it is that season, folks, so don't forget to be nice to each other. Do like and subscribe. Do all that YouTube stuff. Visit me on the other socials and all that stuff. Please like and subscribe. I would love to be able to hit at least 600 by the end of the year. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? Anyway, do please be nice to each other. Hold the door open. Smile. If you've got a little bit of pocket change for them folks ringing the bell in front of the department stores, that's great. If not, at least kind of just be polite. Okay? That's all I can ask. If you do that, I would consider it a personal favor if you just did something nice for somebody today. Hold the door open, wave, smile, do whatever. You might find that you kind of like it. You might do it more than once, Anyway, that is all I have. Coming up next, I'm going to, soon, I don't know next, but coming up very soon, we took a look at that Dell Optiplex to see if it was still valid in 2022, but there's some things that I want to kind of test against it. Battlefield 2042 keeps putting updates out to make, they've gone the route of No Man's Sky, where it came out and it was really, really bad, and they've continued to improve it. But Warzone 2 is out as well, so I want to kind of test both of those on that old Dell Aptiplex to see how well it might do with both of those games. So until I get around to doing that, folks, I still have a couple other things I'm figuring out and playing around with and tearing up because, well, that's what I do around here. So until next time, be good to each other, and I'll see you later.